Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Elliot Grigg. We are here to discuss what is next for Anthony Joshua, the former two-time unified world heavyweight champion. Elliot, good to be joined by you as always. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Joshua been out the ring for coming up to a year now. We're being told possibly November, which means maybe an announcement could be fairly imminent, but it doesn't feel like there are kind of a huge amount of names that are being discussed. And considering how the fight against Dubois went, it's going to be, it's kind of a tricky one to maybe nail down and kind of predict who he is going to be fighting next. I'll start with kind of maybe an option that it has been spoken about more that I want to get your opinion on as well. The Jake Paul thing would be a massive fight, a lot of money on the table. Joshua's in the grand stages of his career now. So it could happen, but I want to get your opinion. Do you think that this fight could actually happen next, Joshua versus Jake Paul?
No, I don't in a word. I don't in a word. I feel like, I mean, it would make sense from Joshua's point of view. I think Josh splattered Jake Paul family all over the place. But I kind of see it as one of Jake Paul's kind of promo tricks. Like, talking about Canelo, talking about Joshua, just these massive names. I'm going to fight them and they're ducking me, whatever. But in reality, I can see it maybe being more the other way around. I can't see a world where Jake Paul would necessarily want to fight Anthony Joshua at this stage of his career. He's still far too fresh. But don't get me wrong, obviously had that points victory over Chavez, but Chavez has obviously, led a very different life. And it's not necessarily, the sort of size, it's not the size as someone like Joshua. We saw what happened when Joshua went in with Ngannou. And I think a similar sort of thing would happen with Jake Paul, frankly. It's far too. Imagine them two guys just standing next to each other. You look at Jake Paul, he's obviously he's trained, but he's still not obviously at the level of someone like Joshua. And you look at him and go, well, actually, you're not. I know you're obviously you've got whatever diet you're on, whatever you're puffed up, you're bummed up, whatever. But you're still not naturally as big as Joshua. I think Joshua will just bully you around and actually possibly really, really hurt you. Someone heavyweight like that, you could get really, really hurt. So I actually don't see Jake Paul wanting that fight. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't think it'll happen next. But I think he'll keep calling for it.
Yeah, it sounded like at one point Jake Paul Canelo was quite close. Jake Paul's spoken about fighting Gervonta Davis, but I think it's one of those. I think I agree with you. I just think that Jake Paul has no chance of winning that fight. Could get badly hurt. It's not a particularly safe fight either, which is one of the reasons I'm not in favour. You shouldn't have someone who has achieved what Joshua has achieved against someone who possibly wouldn't even win an area title in Jake Paul. That fight it shouldn't happen. But money talks, so we'll see. I think. Look, the latest is we're recording this early August, and the latest we're hearing from Eddie Hearn is it's a case of does Jake Paul really want it? If he does, then we can make that fight. But if he doesn't, then we'll look at other options. Before we go any further, Elliot, want to say anyone watching this video, please do subscribe to this channel. If you haven't done so already, give us your opinion. Who do you want to see Joshua fight next? Who do you think Joshua's going to fight next? There are many heavyweights out there. One of those heavyweights out there, Elliot, is Deontay Wilder. I'll be interested to know what we both looked like when we first started discussing versus Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder a very long time ago, I imagine. Wilder came back with a win a month or so ago now. His first win for a little while. Not the fighter he once was, about to turn 40. Give us your thoughts on that as a potential matchup, please.
Yeah, I'll give you my thoughts on that, but I'll give my thoughts on us aging. I think you've aged better than me over that time period, to be honest with you. But no, I think I actually think that might happen, I really do. If I look at it and I go, for Joshua, I think it's no secret, on this channel, we've all kind of said it to a degree that Joshua's level has kind of declined fairly recently, whether that's kind of a mental thing, a psychological thing, or a physical thing, since kind of Usyk fights especially. So I almost feel like he's kind of, I know he's had surgery, so he's been out for a while, but I think you're kind of looking at maybe one or two really, really massive fights before sort of sailing away. And I still feel like the Wilder fight is a massive fight for him. I think, don't get me wrong, it won't be the quality that it once was. We've seen Deontay Wilder is nowhere near the fighter he once was, seemingly. Laboured to that sort of victory. He got the victory in the end, didn't he? But it wasn't a vintage performance against an opponent who wasn't even that challenging recently last time out. So, and obviously, come back with the fights against Parker and Zhang and sort of heavily beaten there. So, I feel like that fight could happen. I still feel like it's a big enough name. There's still enough intrigue. You look at Wilder and go, if Wilder catches Joshua, could Joshua go? Probably, to be honest with you. We've seen Joshua hurt. We've seen his legs buckle a few times. So I feel like actually that's a fight that could happen. But I still feel like where Wilder is right now, I feel like Joshua should win that, frankly. Even though, again, we talked about Joshua being on the decline, I still have Joshua as quite a heavy favourite actually in that fight. So for me, there's a lot of money on it. It's a good name. And it's a dangerous fight. Obviously, could lose, could get stopped himself. But I still feel like he's got enough. And when we saw that Dubois fight, I still feel like Joshua, that version of Joshua, has still got enough to beat Deontay Wilder, frankly. So I actually can see that fight happening.
Yes, my view on this is I think Joshua would take that fight. With Wilder, I wonder if his last performance, it still wasn't great. He was against a very negative opponent, but it was still clearly not the Deontay Wilder of a few years ago. And it wouldn't surprise me if Wilder wants another fight, I would say November, December time, of a better opponent than Tyrell Herndon, but yeah, not on the level of Anthony Joshua. I think he wants that fight in between. So I just think from a timings perspective, if Joshua wants to fight November, December, Wilder, I don't think he'll be ready in time. That's my thought on it, but I would like to see it because I just think it's a question of do you want to see a fight where both fighters are past their best, or do you not want to see it at all? I think that's kind of the question here. And it's despite everything, it's still a big fight, and I wonder if Joshua is the man to get the old Wilder back. Um, we'll see. We'll see. It would still be exciting, wouldn't it?
Mm.
Um, Elliot, I feel like there's probably like there's probably 8 or 9 more names we could discuss here, but we could kind of end up going around in circles. But one name I wanted one more name I want to discuss with you is Martin Bakole. This fight's been spoken about in the past. Bakole not had the best few months. We've discussed in the past the whole going to Saudi last minute, fighting Joseph Parker, getting that draw against F.A. Jagba soon after the fight against Parker in a fight he still wasn't in good shape for. Um, what about that as a fight? Bakole, I think we've seen he can be dangerous. We've seen he can kind of not be dangerous and turn up out of shape, but give us your views on that fight because that fight's been spoken about in the past. Martin McCullough's got a very vocal trainer in Billy Nelson. It would be a big fight, maybe it could happen in Africa. Two guys with African backgrounds, maybe. But yeah, just your thoughts on that one, please.
The undisputed sparring champion gets his shot. I think, you know what? I don't think that fight will happen. The reason I don't think that fight will happen is because despite Bacoli obviously looking ridiculous against Joseph Parker, despite him still not being in condition really against F.A. Jack, despite having what seemed to be a very, very long camp, if you consider the lies that he was in camp when he fought Joseph Parker. But I think you look at Bacoli, the one thing he does, he's got very heavy hands. He's got hits very hard, and also his hands are quite fast as well. Not a huge amount of movement necessarily in his feet, but very heavy-handed, fast-handed. I just think with Bakali, it's been said about him before, not necessarily to do with Joshua, but it's generally something that's kind of like who needs him club sort of thing. And I feel like, to be honest, does Anthony Joshua need that? Frankly, that'd be a credible win, especially if he turns up motivated, like the example we saw against Yoka, the example we saw against Jared Anderson. I think you get that, not the Yoka, sorry, the Bakali you saw against Yoka and the Bakali you saw against Jared Anderson. I think you get that sort of Bakali. I think he could beat Joshua, frankly. I actually probably make him favourite to beat Joshua. And I feel like that kind of challenge might actually bring Bakole into some sort of conditioning and sort of dedication, frankly. So, and I think for Joshua, what do you get out of that? Really, that's a really dangerous fight, to be honest. If you win, you go, yeah, okay, fine. But the fights we want to see, possibly with Fury, possibly Wilder, you probably won't get the credit for it that you probably should deserve. So for me, it's kind of very high risk, fairly minimal reward. So if I'm Joshua, I'm not taking it. But I think if it does happen, I actually would back Bakole to beat Joshua. I really would at this stage.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I think we'll see. Look, I think it's if Bakole turns up in shape. You'd like to think he would do. If he doesn't, that'd be kind of 3 fights in a row that he hasn't done. Yeah, it's still a fight. I think it's still a good fight. I know Bakole is in a difficult situation at the moment because he's got a contract with Boxer, so he has no idea when he's next going to fight. So whether that fight happens next or not, you never know. I just think, but in my heart of hearts, I think Joshua's team will want to go just for a bit of an easier touch, a bit like kind of when they came back against Jermaine Franklin for the after the Usyk fights. just to kind of get that win and to kind of build up a bit of hype ahead of hopefully kind of some bigger fights in 2026. But we'll leave it there, Alex. We could go around in circles. There's so many people out there to be Joshua's next opponent, but we've named a potential 3. Elliot, thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak to you again very soon.
Thank you very much, man, as always. And as always, again, guys, thank you very much for watching.